All right, let's talk about keto for athletes, the pros, the cons, the very much unknown, and I'm also going to reveal what happened to our pro athletes when they went keto. So, as you know, ketogenic diets have become quite popular in recent years, and countless people cut carbs to pretty much lose weight and improve their health. But the question is, should athletes be on a keto diet? And if so, should all athletes be on the keto diet? Is it created equal? Or have we found that carbs are an indispensable part of diets designed to really optimize physical performance? So let's dive into the science and see where the truth lies. So what changes occurs in the body on a ketogenic diet? To understand the impact of keto dieting on athletes, we first have to know what changes occur as we eliminate nearly pretty much all the carbs from our daily menu. So a ketogenic diet serves to switch your body from a state of glycolysis, using carbs as its primary energy source, to ketosis, where the body actually breaks down ketones for energy. The state is known as ketosis, and it actually happens within 2 to 4 days of reducing your carbs less than 50 grams a day. Your insulin levels are going to drop as your body will produce more ketone bodies to fuel the internal processes. So ketosis is the body's response to a lack of carbs. In simple terms, you're forcing your body to start using fat for fuel. So keto for athletes, does it actually help you perform better? Well, keto dieting has grown popularity among competitive populations, with more athletes adapting this low-carb diet to improve their performance and recovery. But does science support it? One reason why keto dieting actually is beneficial to athletes is because of the metabolic adaptations that take place. So this study shows entering a state of ketosis makes athletes much better at burning fat for energy, with fat oxidation rates increasing as much as twofold. Being able to metabolize fat more efficiently is beneficial for endurance athletes simply because of the sheer energy availability through adipose tissue. Even relatively lean athletes have an enormous amount of fat that they can use for energy. In essence, keto allows you to tap into enormous energy reserves in your body and use them more efficiently during training. On a high-carb diet, a long endurance session would drain your limited glycogen stores and you would suffer from a performance drop, unless you could refuel during your exercise session. So being keto adapted puts you in a position where you no longer rely on your body's limited carbohydrate sources. So just as endurance athletes are adopting the keto lifestyle, we see more high-intensity athletes experiment with a low-carb approach. For example, like we've seen soccer players, rugby players, they rely on quick energy production to be explosive on the field. Now, this is where the research falls a bit short, and it becomes more of a personal testing game. Limited research suggests keto-adapted athletes can perform well in more intense activities, sometimes even better than they have in their previous performance on a high-carb diet. However, according to this study, there are some reasons to believe that keto adaptations can occur more slowly for high-intensity athletes than for endurance athletes. And according to some experts, the time it takes could be 2 to 3 times longer. So it could be like a 12 or longer week process to adapt. One potential reason is that fat burning allows for steady energy supply for muscle cells, leading to good endurance performance, but more intense activity relies on quicker energy production, which might not occur readily after an athlete starts following a ketogenic diet. So another question that's been asked is, can ketosis speed up recovery? There is some research that suggests ketosis may help prevent inflammation, which means it could possibly help athletes recover. Again, the research is limited, but it could be promising. Many athletes report being able to recover much faster from demanding races and competitions, returning to their regular training sooner than people who follow a high-carb diet. Now, another benefit of ketosis is that fat loss occurs more effortlessly, which benefits the athletes, right? Particularly those who must maintain a certain weight for competition. Easier fat loss also means athletes don't have to spend as much time calorie deficit or calorie counting, and they can achieve their body composition goals more quickly. Losing fat but retaining muscle also improves your power to output. So if you're a cyclist, a runner, pretty much any sort of person where you're actually using your body's power to weight ratio is very important. For example, a runner carrying less weight but having the same amount of muscle as someone heavier, they would burn fewer calories, they would suffer from less joint stress, they would set better times, and their power to weight ratio would be better. Now let's talk about the unknown for keto. The keto diet is fairly new and the research is far, far from conclusive. In this study, it does demonstrate that there was not a performance decrease between a high-carb diet and a low-carb diet, but there is a problem. They only tested high-intensity athletes up to 25-minute workouts. They honestly have no idea what happens after a 25-minute mark, and they're uncertain if 25 minutes was enough time to actually completely deplete the available glycogen stores. So it's a little bit unknown once you go past this 25-minute mark. Now here's what we know at Cell Sauce. For 2 years, all right, we tested a low-carb diet plan with several of our athletes, and here's what we discovered. For endurance athletes who trained under or even competed under 80% VO2 max and under 85% max heart rate, we saw long-lasting energy and not a big decline, really no decline with a low-carb diet. However, with many of our motocrossers and say mountain bike athletes, we saw big performance declines. So here's what was happening. For a motocross athlete, their training day can consist of 3 30-minute motos with approximately 30 to 45 minutes rest between. Now, during a 30-minute moto, an athlete would hit 90 to 95% VO2 max and 100% of their max heart rate. In this situation, we saw our athletes exceed the 80% VO2 max and the 85% max heart rate and the 25-minute exercise length. So on the first moto of the day, our athletes had good energy, they had good intensity, and the output was good. But the second moto, we started to see a decline in intensity and energy. And they even said that the perceived effort for the same output was increased. And on the last moto, our riders were tired, lethargic, and even suffered from a lack of focus. The perceived effort was even way higher and their lap times were slower. Overall, we saw a larger performance decline when on a low-carb diet versus a high-carb diet. Now lastly, during a low-carb diet, we saw slow recovery times. When our riders finished training, they ate a recovery meal, and the rest of the day, our athletes lacked energy, they lacked motivation, and experienced lethargy. Oftentimes, this lack of energy would carry over into the following day, making training recovery worse. This makes sense considering the time difference to metabolize fat versus the time it takes to metabolize carbohydrates. What we saw during our test was clear. Now, for you, if your training requires high-intensity exercise lasting more than 30 minutes, or if you're required to do multiple high-intensity sessions during a day, a low-carb diet did not work, for us anyways. So until further research is available or better strategy is discovered, our high-intensity athletes at Cell Sauce utilize carbohydrates to reach their peak performance. Now, with that all being said, the conclusion is blurry, all right? Research is far from conclusive on any nutritional approach to optimize athletic performance and recovery. But here's our suggestions. If you're an endurance athlete and your sport keeps your heart rate under 85% max and your VO2 under roughly 80% max, then you should test out a keto diet. It can be very beneficial. But be prepared for an adaptation period for the first few weeks. Now, if you're a high-intensity athlete like our motocross and mountain bike athletes, you can try keto diet, but I would advise against it. We've adopted a train high, rest low approach. So what that means is on days where we really have high output, we increase our carbohydrate intake. On recovery days or days where we're doing base training or even a rest day, we have a lower carbohydrate intake. Every athlete requires different nutrition to perform optimally. So your job is to test, track, and be aware of how your body responds to the fuel you give it. If you want help with nutrition plans, meal plans, and fitness programs for cyclists, runners, mountain bikers, and motocross riders, you can check out cellsauce.com/pro.